It's starting to record.
Yeah, this background is kind of tripping me out, man. How do I remove this shit?
Uh, so today we are introducing to you, together with my good friend Joseph Dougherty, awesome practitioner of Santissima Muerte and kinetic current and energy work, Disco Magal. Yeah.
How's
So,
it going? Hello?
hello.
You're on. Greetings, Disco.
Greetings.
Yeah, your background's still on. I wouldn't. If it's bothering you, you could figure out how to turn it off. I think it looks cool.
Okay, I mean, if y'all want to go with that, that's fine. It looks kind of, yeah, it's kind of weird to me, but whatever. If y'all like it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, if you can figure out how to turn it off, that's all good. But so Disco, can you speak on some of the spirits that you work with? Sort of give them honorable public mention, a glorification that counts as a spiritual currency with the spirits as well.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, it's a lot. I would hate to forget anyone, any spirits specifically.
Just who you're working with, like now, as of recent during this season.
Okay, right now I'm working with the nameless god, Shaitan, doing the devotionals the 3 times a day. I really like doing the devotionals, doing like the mantras and stuff like that. And there's a lot of power and devotion, man. That's one of the things that I've been working on myself right now. Santa Muerte is always a thing. And Lucifer is always a thing as well. Um, I worked with a lot of death, like a lot of death energies. So I'm very comfortable with death energies.
Fantastic.
Mm.
What current do you currently work with? You're saying that you work with death energies primarily. Is it a necrosophic current? Is it specifically a current dealing with Santa Muerte? What are some of the practices and the traditions in the current that you're working in right now?
Okay, so I've worked on several currents, and one of the things that I do a lot of is I ask Santa Muerte for guidance in the like whatever I'm working on, um, and she kind of guides me to do certain things. Like I'll go to graveyards and things like that, and just charge my cemetery water, like put it in. I work with ancestry work a lot as well. Like I have an ancestral altar. I work with my great grandfather actually. Um, Kind of talk to him every once in a while. He shows me some stuff. And actually, Lucifer's been around like our family for a while that I didn't even know about that. He took me to a spot a while back when I channeled with him in a dream, and I was talking to Lucifer, and he was like, they were buds, So I thought that was pretty interesting. Uh, I thought you were about to ask me something.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, okay, because this is where every practitioner that comes on, when they speak about Lucifer, who is Lucifer to you? Is it Malak Taus? Is it Iblis? Is it Samael? Who is Lucifer to you?
Well, man, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you what I learned from Lucifer. Whenever I met with my grandfather the other day, because he took us in. Like Lucifer was like a little kid, and he was talking with everybody. And Lucifer is basically what came about, and this is kind of goes in with my working with the devotionals that I was talking about in the Devil's Quran. Lucifer came about as a whenever like the separation happened, he's like in the middle as far as like he understands the light and the dark, but the light being the false light and the darkness being the true light. You know what I'm saying? So it was very interesting what I heard. Like, so this was new to me. So I'm like me speaking on it right now is the first time I really even told anybody about it. And this is like the gnosis that I received. And he was saying that, basically like as it says in the Quran, it says the Devil's Quran, how we each have our place, either we belong to the blind one or the nameless God. And so Lucifer, he said that he is there to help us come back to the nameless, for those of us who were lost in the false light. And so that's how I see Lucifer. Lucifer has been a guide for me, and I think he can take on the light, the false light, to show us like what we need to learn at a certain time. But then he can bring us back to the dark light, after whenever we're ready for that. you know. So he's like, he kind of guides us to that. Good.
Right. So you're saying that when Tahiru took place, the separation between the God, Lucifer and the Godhead. I want to understand that. Is he talking about Tahiru with the Godhead, or the false light when the separation happened with the false light? That's what you're speaking about.
The false light, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So, in your opinion, the mechanics of magic, why do you think that magic will work for atheists or someone who don't believe in these metaphysical arts or spirits or anything like that? Why do you think magic will work? That's getting into the mechanics of magic.
Okay, so I think it works for like people like that because like we're all basically energy based, and it comes about like with will. You know what I'm saying? So like we can actually push something into reality by sheer will alone, you know, whether it be physically, mentally, or magically. Sometimes they don't know that they're doing it magically. Sometimes they do, you know, but that's that's how my path started. Kind of, I started as like an atheistic Satanist. I actually joined an atheistic group, and for a long time, that's what I believed in. And I actually started working with energy, like my own energy, to produce outcome myself. And that's when I got into qigong and everything. And then things started changing whenever, you know, I started seeing spirits. And then remembering when I was a kid, I grew up next to a graveyard. And when I was a kid growing up next to a graveyard, like I would see spirit shadow people all the time. Like that was something. So I couldn't deny that aspect of myself. So, you know, atheists, I think just the spirits led me that way just to kind of learn something and then move on from that, you know?
Yes. So I've been doing some work with Asteroth, and this is how she explained it to me. The Orshiainbo Mashava, the original source, not the false light source, but the original source, the primordial source, which we all come from, endowed us with the breath of life. Now, this, I'm going to get into the 72 names of God and the thwarting angels of the Shemhem Ephrash. So these names, they double as epithets and barbarous names. When you utter a sound like Tav, Ye, Ma, Sheva, No, Ha, that's creating a waveform and working with our breath, with the DNA at the soul level. So what she said to me is, when you utter those sounds, it creates a waveform that interacts with the matrix of reality. Coupled with your intention, you're actually pushing code into your reality, and it expands. It expands depending on how much astral light that you are generating, whether you're evoking from the left side, the pillar of severity, or the right side, the pillar of mercy. There's two impulses. There's a contraction with the left side, and there's an expansion with the right side. So when you push, you'll get quicker results when you push your intention into the reality, and then it kind of goes out, then it contracts. That's why we see quicker results with demonic magic than angelic magic. So do you have any adversity with working with angels? Do you work with the 200 fallen Shem angels? What angelic presences have you worked with?
So I don't really work with a lot of angelic entities. I did a convocation maybe a couple of years ago, like the day, however many days it was, 72 days in a row. You summon an angel, one angelic entity, one demonic entity, and what that experience was very interesting to me because what I got from a couple of them, they told me that they were basically kind of the same, except for different aspects of the same entity. Because I noticed a lot of them had the same abilities, but different spectrum of the same abilities. Like one would cause confusion, one could heal confusion, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like as if the chakras in the system, like one your lower chakra is one, but it's still you, and then your crown chakra is still a part of you, but it has a different aspect of you to it. You know what I'm talking about? So that's what they were telling me. It was very interesting that And that is really the last time I worked with them. And I just kind of just remained with the demonic. And again, like I follow intuition a lot. One of the things that happened to me is like I almost died in 2016. I had a near-death experience, and so one of the things that was affected was my memory. So like a lot of my studies, I grew dependent upon following my intuition. So my memory has gotten better. You know, I've healed a lot since then with energy work and stuff like that. So that's what led me to healing, is because I wanted to really initially learn how to heal myself. You know, so that's how all that started for me.
So, I always get these questions, so I always ask it to my guests because a lot of people ask me. So, how one beginner can start working with Santa Muerte or demons?
Okay, so with the demonic, it's I think it's a lot about devotion, because if you just come at them with just kind of like one in bullshit, you know, they're gonna kind of ignore you. When I first started trying to work with the demonic, it took a solid year of me getting no results at all before something started happening. You know, and I mean like anything at all. So I was doing the rituals. I was following Connolly, all the books. I was reading all the books, doing everything exactly how it said. I was getting no results. And then after a solid year of that, then things started happening. You know, I noticed. So there's like devotion is one of the things. Also with Santa Muerte, similar devotion, but I think Santa Muerte has a lot of aspects, and I think if you just choose one to work with, she will work with you. Whatever that aspect, you know, you decide to work with her on. So it depends. She's very multidimensional, so she can actually, like a lot of people can work with her in different capacities. You know, like a lot of people call her a folk saint. I see her as a goddess. She's an aspect of death itself. You know, she's an aspect of Miticatsiwet, which is an Aztec goddess. You know, so she's basically that's how. So to start working, I would say just devotion is like the main thing. Just start learning and devote yourself to actually working with whatever entities you're going to start working with, and then eventually they will respond after they see that you're serious, you know.
So technically, how one can initiate into the current of Santa Muerte and how you would define devotion?
How would I define devotion is pick something you're willing to do every day, I guess, and then do that every day, and then she'll respond in kind, and then your devotion would grow from there, depending upon how she reacts and how you guys react to that different amount of devotion. You know, that's how. What was the other part of the question?
How one can initiate into the current of Santa Muerte? Is there any prayer, any ritual for initiation, any procedure? Because Santa Muerte technically has a priesthood and it's a religion. Like how you relate to that, how you get introduced to that.
Okay, so I know a lot of people aren't going to like this, but I don't think that you have to I think initiation is just talking to her and working with her. I think that if you're a child of Santa Muerte, she will work with you. I don't think there's actually any one prayer or anything that you have to do in order to do that. I've actually been kicked out of Santa Muerte groups for saying stuff like this, you know, because it's basically what you feel, and just start following her, and she will guide you to what it is you need to do. I feel that everybody has, like with Santa Muerte, you kind of have your own current, and it's a personal relationship with her. That's what I feel. So I don't think there is like a certain prayer that you can do unless that resonates with you, you know. So there are different churches of Santa Muerte that say you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to do this and you have to do that. But again, like I don't really agree with a lot of that stuff that they do, you know, like, but you know, I usually catch shit for that, you know. I think if they close the practice and it becomes a religion, you know, Santa Muerte. So Santa Muerte is based on like the Catholicism and all that kind of stuff, right? So there's other entities that have been hidden, Aztec entities that were hidden in Catholicism, because basically when the Spaniards came to South America and they were like, okay, you have to follow these gods, they hid their Aztec gods in the saints. So they started calling them by the saint's name. And one is Tonantzin, the Virgen de Guadalupe. So the Virgin of Guadalupe, they call Tonantzin is the Virgin of Guadalupe. So they hid it inside of the saints so they could still worship their gods, but hide it. And like, so the Catholics thought that, you know, so they wouldn't be oppressed for following their own religion. So that's what happened. And then it changed. It became Catholicism, you know, then it started changing into different stuff. So different aspects evolved from there.
I absolutely love Santa Muerte. I'm not a devotee of Santa Muerte, but a couple reasons why I love her is because she's a protector of the outlaws. She guides and protects the poor people, the common people. So that's a deity that I can get behind for sure. As far as any other deities that you are working with as of late besides Santa Muerte?
I mean, I'm sorry, man. Like I said, it's so many. I've been working with Azazel recently.
Okay.
I've been working with Azazel. That's been pretty beneficial. You know, like I've been working with Mammon recently as well. I've worked a lot with Moloch. Not a lot. Like, so when I say I work with them, I don't work in a traditional sense. I basically sit down and I channel and I talk to them, and I ask them, "Hey, I'm having this issue. What can I do to fix it?" And they'll give me something to fix it, and I work. But how it resonates with me, you know, when you work with demons, huh?
Now you're talking. Now you just said 3 heavy hitter names. So was Azazel more active for you over the past week or so with the Jewish holiday with the Yom Kippur?
Actually, yes. Azazel started coming through to me very recently. I've been a practitioner for a few years now, and I've never worked with Azazel. So, which is funny because I say Azazel out loud, but when I'm doing chants, I say Azazel. You know, it's easier to do like mantras and stuff like that. But yeah, I've worked for a long time in the occult and never worked with Azazel until recently. Recently, just something resonated, and boom, there was a connection. I think you had Tila on your show recently. I got a soul link from her with Azazel, and that was very beneficial. So big shout out to her, you know. But yeah, man, it was ever since then, you know, like I've been working with Azazel. Azazel is fucking. I've been learning some things. Yeah.
Cool.
So technically, I wanted to ask you because because this is Santa Muerte show, right? I need to say my own experience with Santa Muerte. So to be honest, I have humble experience with her. I performed maybe 20 rites with Santa Muerte, but what I can say is that from the work I performed, she kind of did 3 things. She fulfilled my request for financial improvement twice. She humbled me and she offered me the pact which I wasn't willing to sign. She wanted to give me something which is known as the priesthood of the site. Technically, it is some form of a, like, I get energy of her in my aura, so that I can use it when she isn't there. And she kind of wanted to really introduce me to the deeper secrets of her current. So she required me to work with her for the next 10 years. And that's why she kind of did all the favors to me quickly. But I declined because honestly, like Santa Muerte, from my experience, she is caring. She is powerful. She is ancient. But there is a part of her current, which is extremely difficult to handle, especially if you like go into rituals hardcore. Like, there is an aspect to her which is simply incomprehensible to humanity. Like, when you work with her, I personally have a feeling that when you call Santa Muerte, you never call exclusively one spirit. It's a kind of a hive mind which manifests as her, but it's never one entity. It's always much bigger force and power of death. And she always comes with what I can only describe as the numerous dead. She always comes as an emissary of a hive mind. She never comes individually. And what people do not understand is I kind of heard a lot of people like there is a lot of people who have good experience with Santa Muerte, and there are also a lot of people who have not so much good experience. I think those bad experiences are coming from the absence of understanding that you are not dealing with one saint or with one spirit or with one deity. You are dealing with the hive mind of death itself, manifested as that being. And when you understand that, you will kind of approach her with extreme caution because it's a form of energy which is by definition alien to our mundane human experience. It's so alien energy to our experience that when we get introduced, usually to that energy, we die. So we need to understand that that energy should be taken with extreme caution and respect, because when you work with that energy in extreme way, death is always a possibility. And I am not talking about metaphorical death or spiritual death. I am talking about you dropping dead, and you need to have that awe, that respect for Santa Muerte and for her current of death. You cannot casually walk into it to see what will happen, because then there is a big chance of you really fucking up. And I have a question for you because you kind of work with her for years. Uh, can she be used in love magic?
Well, I would stay away from using the term used. Can you work with her in love magic? You can, but she's not always going to do what you want. So basically, love is as far as like finding a partner. I would say do not work with Santa Muerte unless she, for some reason, sees that you and that person should be together. Because I don't think that she's, like I said, you can try, but I don't think that that's something that's really, that seems kind of mundane for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think she's really, really likes that. You know what I'm saying? She wants us to be happy, but she's going to look at the long run, what's going to happen with us first. She comes in a very motherly way, you know? So it's like if the person's not good for you, she's not going to help you out. I've actually had people, you know, that did, I've done magic for people who were like, Santa Muerte was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. And straight up told them like, and then later on I found out that there was a reason why, but yeah, she told me that no, she's not gonna, she straight up won't do it. Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, but I am not asking about erotic binding spells. I am not referring to that. I am referring to like I call Santa Muerte to attract person I don't know yet, person I didn't meet yet, to kind of come and be there. Like I'm talking about that kind of stuff. Or what's your experience with like Santa Muerte and what you work with her for, how she manifested in your life?
For what kind of manifestation? Love manifestation?
For anything really, like just talk about your experience with her, what she manifested, what she brought, what she taught, how she changed you, etc.
Okay, so basically, she changed my perception on what it is I wanted or that I thought that I wanted at the time. I have asked her for partners before, and I've asked her for specific partners, and it has not come through. And later on, I found out was because that person was not the person that I was supposed to have. That's why I was saying that she's very motherly to me, because she's not going to help you engage in something that's going to draw you away from what you're supposed to be doing.
So,
Am I not answering your question?
Yeah, I get you, brother. But for example, how your life changed since you started working with Santa Muerte, like, and what type of magic you found the most success in with her?
Okay, my life changed because whenever I was very alone for a long time, because after my near-death experience, I didn't have anybody there. So whenever she came to me, she was there for me when nobody else in my family or anything like that was. My life changed because I all of a sudden had some entity there that I knew that cared about me, and she's been active in my life in many different ways, like ways that I don't even know about, you know? So she's been around, um, helping me in many ways. So she helps teach me things that I need to do. Like if I have certain pains, like she will take the pain away from my heart. I've had instances where I was suffering a lot. She'll take the pain away, and she has helped me with that. Like she's helped me manifest certain things. Like when I say manifest, I say like for clients that I've had, and that's personal to them. So I'm not going to really say for them. For me, I'm only going to speak for myself. But you know, she will help you with certain things. Like if you need those things, I think if she thinks that you need them, basically, if it's according to your path.
Yeah, yeah.
She's given me stability. She's given me like, you know, I didn't have that before. She's given me a new perception on who I am. She's given me like more value in what it is I do in my life. You know, before I had her, I didn't have any of that shit. I was on the streets, drug addicts, fucking robbing people, doing all that shit. That's what I was doing. You know? And it's just she took me away from all that because I wanted to get away from all that. And she told me I had a higher purpose. And that's why I started working with the dead, working with my ancestors. So she helped facilitate connection with my ancestors as well.
How long did it take for you to realize that transition from the streets to starting to get your shit together?
Okay, so it was the near-death experience, man. It was really just like being on the streets and everything. I had a liver failure. Basically, the doctor said I was going to die in 6 months. And they said that no matter what I did, that's it, I was just going to die. And then that's whenever everything changed for me, because I was like, well, fuck, you know, in 6 months, everybody, like, you want to get an apartment, you want to get a girlfriend, you want to that's what you think you want, you know? Can't, you know, so like I didn't have all that shit was gone. And it made me just, after you fight for something like that, it changes every aspect of like the way you see things. So that took, it was a split second, but for me to heal and everything, it took maybe a couple of years, you know. But then that allowed me to dive like headfirst into the occult. After that, that's when I dove headfirst into the occult.
Mm. So a little bit earlier, you spoke about working with the nameless god. Are you speaking of Chavajoth or the Azerate dragon? Is that who you're speaking of?
As spoken of in the Devil's Quran.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit of gnosis on the nameless god, because it's that I know what you're talking about, but it's hard for people to wrap their minds around a deity that is so far removed from the Earth's sphere, but it's right here with us at the same time. Can you speak a little bit about working with the nameless god?
So when I work with, so this has been, like you're saying, recent. So it's pretty recent. So my gnosis is going to be not vast, right? But basically,
Okay.
what I'm seeing is that like there's you know, we have the nameless God within us, and the way I rationalize this is the best that I can as the human being that I am is that we have molecules, atoms are like they have the nucleus of the atom, and then all around you have the molecules going around, and that makes the whole atom, right? And then the small part in the middle is the nucleus or whatever, right? Everything around that empty space is an aspect of the nameless God. So
Gotcha.
it is within us, like every cell that is in our body. So I think that's why it's like when I started doing the devotions, the connection was pretty quick for me. Like as soon as I devoted, like consistently start doing the devotions every day, I've energy has increased. My energy workings have gotten more powerful. Everything is increased. Yeah.
So the
I kind
Orsianbo Masava, yeah, it's the nameless god. Sorry, go ahead, Demetrius. What were you going to ask him?
so I am like, because there is a parallel here. So we are talking about nameless God, and if I am not wrong, when you pray to the nameless God, you feel one, that your energy levels increase, two, you feel more connected to the dark entities, and three, when you pray to the so-called nameless God, sometimes you feel, if I am not wrong, a little rays of the black light radiating from your aura. Am I right?
I have not experienced the rays of black light radiating from my aura. To me, it's like starts in my heart, and then I can feel it inside of me, and then it grows.
Yeah, some form of darkness.
Yes.
So technically, Iblis introduced to me the same concept, but he called it differently. I never talked about Joseph with this about this with Joseph Dougherty. I introduced how Samael explained this to me, but Iblis technically saying the same thing. So maybe you will disagree with me, but I will simply say my perspective. You can right disagree. So he told me that there is Allah or creator as called by mainstream religions, so Yahweh, Allah, whatever. And it's the creative aspect of the source, right? But there is also what you call the nameless God, which is technically the destructive aspect of the same source. But how Iblis introduced this to me is he said to me there are actually Samael was the first to say this to me, but later on Iblis confirmed that there is left side and the right side of Hashem. So the left side of God which created demons and hell, demons and the underworld and all destructive spirits, and then you have the right side of God which created light and all of the angels and shit. So there is the left side of Allah and the right side of Allah. And technically, what you describe as the nameless God, if I am not wrong, is technically the same thing Iblis describes as the nameless God in your book. From what I am getting, is the same thing. So since you worked with Iblis right now, and I worked with him before, since we are on the same page, and we are technically trying to do the same thing, I am inclined to share with you what I discovered through my studies of the genic current with Iblis and Aisha Kadisha, the genic queen from the Moroccan war. So technically you have 99 names of Allah and the name Allah. So it is the 100 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you take those 100 names, and before pronouncing each name, you say, I praise the left side of, and then you pronounce the name. For example, I praise the left side of Al-Muqaddim, which is the one who empower, one who grows, or I praise the left side of Eldar, the left side of he who destroys. And that's way you use those names to connect to what I knew as the left side of Allah, and what you know as the nameless God. It's technically the same thing.
Mhm.
And maybe you will disagree with me that the left side of Allah, aka the nameless God, and the being of light are two aspects of the same thing. You will maybe disagree on that notion. But more or less, the left side of Allah and the nameless God are, from what I understand from your story, the same thing. And while working with Jinni King Maimoon, this is also something I never shared, but I am inclined to. So I investigated, but because when I started working with the left side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when I started pronouncing those names of the left side of Allah, what happened is when I would call a jinn, it doesn't matter what the rank of the jinn was, they would be really willing to tell me the correct information by the power of those names, as well as do what I wanted them to do, and things would happen really quickly. So I told him this. So I noticed that you guys, when compelled by the left side of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do things really quickly. And then also you told me that these magical operations are really dangerous for me. Uh, and when I asked the jinn themselves, or do you venerate the left side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they told me no. And then I asked them why. Uh, they told me that the reason why they venerate the smokeless fire, aka the source energy they came from, aka their energy current, instead of the left side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is because the one who venerates the left side of Allah, aka the nameless God, in the most direct sense, right? Without venerating those masks, which are less direct. When you do it in a really direct way, there is a really high risk of your soul being overloaded with dark energy and blowing up, literally ceasing to exist. And this makes entire story from the Quran and the Old Testament and even Zoroastrian scriptures and even many pagan myths about the book of the dead or the book of death. What it means is if you take certain spiritual paths and you do them wrongly, your soul gets literally destroyed. It gets obliterated. And that's exactly like it links with the thing Scully told me. She kind of told me that there are two ways to left-handed liberation. One is you reach the lowest realm and you reach the Brahman beyond the realm. Brahman below the lowest realm. And another way is your soul gets destroyed. Either way, it doesn't matter which way you did it, you don't incarnate anymore. So this was something I needed to say. Because if even some of the jinn don't want to venerate the left side of Allah, the left side of the creator, because they don't want to run risk of being destroyed. We kind of need to do it. So we need to venerate the left side of God because it's technically the quickest way to spiritual attainment. But we also need to kind of remind our spiritual teachers that what we are doing is worthy of respect. Because once you acknowledge that you will be possibly and absolutely destroyed, but you venerate the left side of the God anyway, you receive a degree of respect from those entities, which is once you kind of acknowledge it, they kind of really start respecting you and they kind of really start treating you as an equal. So what I kind of so technically, and also what I wanted to say specifically in this podcast, sorry for like a long monologue, I have landed in maybe a minute, is that angels and demons and all the spirits are created from the same source. So creative aspect of same thing and destructive aspect of same thing. And we are allowed by that same creator to summon whatever we want to summon and to work with whichever we want to work with. And whoever says otherwise is simply manipulating. That's what I wanted to say. Because if creator don't want us to summon something, he would simply prevent us from doing so. Let's read, for example, the texts. So when the source of all creation didn't want watchers to be anymore on earth, he simply killed them all, right? When the source of all creation didn't want to, for example, have certain people do certain things, he simply wiped them out, right? But we have been conjuring demons for thousands of years and we are not wiped out. Quite the opposite. I see people who conjure demons to prosper more than those who don't. And the only explanation is creator actually wants us to work with the dark forces because they are the manifestation of one of his aspects and one of his forms. So yeah, but how you started working with Iblis in the first place? Can you talk about that for a while?
So I'm working in a current that I'm fairly new in, and like I don't want to speak on it too much because it's like I'm barely new in it. I don't want to say anything that's incorrect or anything like that. I think you had our EAGM on here recently, so that's how I got into all of that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So again, like that's why I'm starting to get into all that, but I don't want to speak too much on it because, like, again, like I don't
No
know
problem.
enough. I don't want to misspeak anything, you know?
Yeah, and there's protocol. So
Yes,
I'll
there's
speak a little
protocol.
bit. I'll speak a little bit about my experience with working with Iblis. So a couple things happen when, in the context of initiation to the modern diabolist. When you first start working with Iblis or Lucifer, Tahiru takes place, a separation. You become unholy. You become separated from the source. And this is akin to what Hashem did when he separated himself and seek to experience his likeness upon the waters. So the separation takes place and you're living off your own life force. You're working with these beings and they are taking a bit of your life force for the workings or the requests that you make upon them. If you're not generating astral light, then you're extinguishing your spark. Slowly but surely, your spark is being extinguished. It's dimming, it's dimming, it's dimming. But this is all part of a cycle. This is healthy. But when, like Demetrius was saying, when you use the names of God, now they're not the names of God and like you're calling on the Christian God. It's not like that. You're creating a waveform and you're generating astral light to feed the entities that you're working with. When I was starting to work with Iblis, he was draining my spark. He was taking my life force, but he taught me a valuable lesson. He taught me that you must work with the higher divine names. You must utter these names so you can generate energy and power. Whether you want to submit to the contractive impulse or the expansive impulse, the solar impulse, it doesn't make a difference. It's all the same thing. And what you were talking about earlier with initiation, there are a couple forms of initiation. There's the deprogramming of the cultural programming that we were born with, born in Christian society. You're initiating out of that. So to start with, you're going to utter a blasphemy. When you utter a blasphemy, that's when the Tahiru takes place. That's when the separation takes place. You're living on your own. You're standing on your own 2 feet. You become a microcosmic representation of the demiurge. Um, mastery of the earth. All these things are taken into account when Tahiru is realized. But if you are not generating astral light, like I said, you are dimming your life force. You'll feel fatigued. You'll feel lethargic. You'll feel heavy in the earth element. You'll be drained. So I'm not telling people that, oh, you have to use the names of God. But for myself, I noticed that even when I would light candles in my temple for ritual, they would be dim. The flame would barely flicker because it was so dense in my temple and my personal spark was being extinguished. So that's some of the things that I experienced with working with Iblis. But he can teach you a great many things. He can teach you survival skills, pre and post apocalyptic scenarios. He can teach you how to live off the land. He can teach you martial arts. He can teach you how to hunt animals. Iblis is a fantastic teacher. He's one of the heroes of mankind, in my opinion. And a lot of people might disagree with this, but as Demetrius has discovered as well, Iblis is an emissary of God. Let's not get into what God is because we'll be talking here all night. The source, the all one encompassing source. He is the emissary of that. Would you, Dysco, what do you think about that? Would you agree with that? That Iblis is an emissary of the source, or he is an adversary of the source?
I would agree with you. I think if you follow the line back to like where the stories, the text talk about the beginning, you can't help but to make that draw that conclusion. You know,
because we have authentic chain. We have hadith with authentic chain of narration that Iblis stayed in sujud, full prostration, for 40,000 years. He committed acts of worship that were unparalleled to any created being. So that would lead you to believe that for sure he's an emissary. We don't get the full story in the religious texts because you're not supposed to. You're supposed to gather your own gnosis, and you're supposed to go through stages of development, and everything isn't supposed to be handed to you on a silver platter. You're supposed to unravel these mysteries on your own and realize what this thing is, this thing called life, this thing called existence, what it actually is. It's a training ground for gods.
Mhm. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that as well.
So, Dysco, another thing I wanted to ask you, has any of the adversarial spirits had you erect any portals on their behalf?
No, not yet.
Because another question I was going to ask you is how important is it for us to erect these portals to set the world's soul back into balance? There is an unnatural field of imposed order that is set over the earth, and it has been here for a very long time. I believe it is our duty and our mission as microcosmic gods, as you, if you will, to erect these portals and to kind of make the veil thinner so that human beings can take off the chains of slavery and limitation that has been set upon us. So you haven't erected any portals yet, but I believe you will, especially if you're working with Iblis.
I think the interesting with the thing that you mentioned portals is that like I consciously have not erected any portals, though like everywhere I've lived, I've had a portal kind of pop up. I do have one in my apartment now, like that I've had entities come to me in that portal, and then I've communicated with them, and I didn't even know who they were. You know, I had to like do some channeling and all that kind of stuff, but they just come through, and
Okay.
that's normally where I erect my altar. Like I have at least one altar there. I have a couple. I have, but yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned the portals. Yeah.
You might be a living portal yourself because there are certain people like like the Ascended Grand Master. I think that he's a walking, talking portal within himself. But these portals, it's absolutely necessary for us to erect these portals, and that's one of the first things that these beings will have you do, and you're rewarded for erecting these portals as well.
So, Disco, can you tell for the audience how one can develop his own astral senses? Can you show us some energy work exercises, like short for beginners, for the purpose of this podcast?
Sure. Um, I would say do some qigong, man, and then do channel building exercises. Basically, I think I have like on my channel, I've shared a couple of those, but working with your chakras, channel building exercise is really easy. You can do that every day. Meditation is obviously important, but basically you just envision your chakra, your the soul star coming down to your crown, going back up, coming down to your third eye, going back up, coming down to your throat, coming back up, all the way down. And then that helps you build your channel building exercises. That's what I used to do to build my channeling. Energy work, man, you're just going to work on your hand chakras a lot, you know. Meditation, get used to your own energy, you know, make learn how to move your energy within yourself. And then from there, you'll be able to, it's kind of a realization. It's not like you'll learn how to manipulate it outside of yourself. You'll just realize that you're doing it already, kind of a thing, but then again, you'll learn how to use it outside of yourself.
Have you developed any of the infernal chakras, the chakras below the waist, your legs, below your feet?
Um, I do have a lower chakra that I use to connect with the earth as far as working with the death energies. So I do have that. Like a lot of the things that I develop, I don't do them consciously. They're just kind of there one day, and just because I just notice it, you know. So I definitely have something related to the death current that's there, and I do work with that when I do my qigong. I connect to the death energy.
Fantastic. Do you have any formal magical education, like OTO or any white or black lodges in your past? Or
The only I did join an organization for a little while, like I said, the atheistic one. But other than that, I just started doing a lot of things on my own.
Right.
And then again, I started following intuition, and that's how I learned a lot of stuff. I started working with the spirits. As far as like OTO, no, I haven't worked with any of them. I haven't done any of that. The group that I'm in now is the first one I've legitimately joined, and then you know that's because there was a real call in there, you know. So
yeah, it's a fantastic order. There's certainly a ton of power to be had in that order.
I'm learning a lot. Yeah.
We'll give them a shout out. We're speaking about the Marjorain Cabal for our audience. Fantastic order with a fantastic teacher at the helm.
Yes.
So, technically, did you ever work with Chernobog as your part of Majarayan initiation?
Again, like I don't want to talk too much about like what happens in the Mejara because I don't have the authority to do any of that kind of stuff. But I have connected with Sonnenberg before on my own, and that was pretty interesting. I actually had an energy rite that I would do on people with Sonnenberg involved, and it was a very interesting energy. It's strong. It was more necromantic than I thought. Every time I worked with Sonnenberg, I would have poltergeist activity in my apartment as well as the other person's apartment, no matter what part of the world they were in. I do a lot of my work remotely. It could be England. It could have been Canada. There was always some sort of something was going on in both places.
That's awesome. You
Yeah.
gotta love the poltergeist activity.
Yeah, man. Sonnenberg is awesome. Again, like I can't speak too much about, you know, but
Sure.
the work that I've done with him, he's awesome. Yeah.
So speaking practically, you got poltergeist activity and you got all these energies in your temple. Do you have any children? Because
No.
I have children, and for practitioners that are doing this stuff, I would encourage them to do all your rites outside. You're going to get more intense manifestation when you do these things under the stars anyway. But these energies can affect children. There have been certain jackasses that I won't name their names that have said, "Oh, clipothic energy is terrific for children." No, it's not. They can't handle it. It's not. Those energies aren't for children because they don't know what they're dealing with as of yet, and it can damage their psyche early in stages of development. So I would urge all practitioners with children to do their workings outside.
Yeah, I live in an apartment. I live in an efficiency apartment, so everything that I do is in my apartment, and I live alone. I have no pets. It's just me and the spirits, basically. Yeah, I'm pretty much devoted 100% to this.
I could tell.
Yeah.
I could tell, man. I could tell just from speaking to you, just from sensing your energy. Legit as fuck. Demetrius, is there any other line of questioning? I don't want to keep repeating the questions that we keep asking our guests.
Technically, do you know anything about priesthood of the site Santa Muerte offered me? Because when she offered me the priesthood of the site, I kind of had a vision of her holding a site and then dropping the gold in front of me. Like, do you know any priests of Santa Muerte, people who work with Santa Muerte? What exactly is that Do you know any advanced rites to connect to her? Like, I will be a little bit personal because this is Santa Muerte show. So technically, uh, what she taught me is she always manifested to me, at least, as a woman with skeletal face, the clothes of a beggar, and the sight. So there is a technique. When she comes in a skeletal face, you look in her face, you look into her skull, and then the smoke will start rising from her mouth, from her eyes. It will start rising from her clothes, and in that smoke, you will see shit. And that shit will be important for you as a practitioner. It can be prophecy, it can be some form of a vision, what you should do. It can be whatever. And there is one more thing, which is extremely close relationship between Santa Muerte and Kizin or Tizin or Taizen, call him whatever you want to. You probably know who he is, like.
Sizen, yeah, I know. Yeah, the Mayan. Mhm.
Yeah. So they are really, really closely related, and they seem to work pretty closely together. So technically, what I kind of came to understand is that Sizin or Kizin or Sizin is a male counterpart of Santa Muerte energy. Now, some people would say that they are married. I don't agree. I think spirits don't marry each other. It's a human concept. But there is also one thing I was instructed to do with both of them respectfully. The technique itself is from Sizin or Kizin. What's actually the correct name to call the guy, first and foremost?
Okay, so you're talking about two different pantheons. You're talking about the Mayan pantheon. You're talking about the Aztec pantheon. They are very closely related. However, they are different. So I've heard his name Sizen pronounced more often, and I can actually explain to you whenever you're talking about how they say that they're married. So uh, Mictacatzihuet is Santa Muerte, and Mictlantecuhtli is the male counterpart. So we all know that any entity can have a masculine and feminine aspect to itself, right? So in the old ways, they would actually explain it as they were married. So their married aspects are actually the male and female counterpart of that same energy. So whenever they say they're married, they're not really, it's a human concept, like you said. So that's why they explain it in a human way. But Sizen is Mayan. Mictlantecuhtli would be the male counterpart to Mictacatzihuet, which is Santa Muerte.
Yeah, yeah. So technically, personally, I called what you call Mictlantecuhtli under that name once. So I worked much more with Kizin or Tizin than with Mictlantecuhtli. What I noticed as a difference between the two of them is that Mictlantecuhtli is much more warlike,
Mhm.
and Lord of Mitlan never speaks. He never spoke to me a single word. Like, when he comes, you can just feel the dread, the fear, the terror of him being there. Unlike Santa Muerte is much more talkative and much more welcoming. But I talked more about because I worked with Santa Muerte and Kizin at the same time or season. So I chose them as a pair. Maybe I was heterodox and heretical. Maybe I was wrong, but I worked with Kizin and Santa Muerte as a pair. The Lord of Mitlan was too dreadful for me at the time, if you get what I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah, so technically I received something, maybe I performed a piece of that ritual as a test. So the point is you take as strong tobacco as you can. So let me first explain you how all of this started. This is actually a really interesting story. So back in a day when I wasn't slandered and blackmailed, I actually had a lot of friends in a cult community, and one of those friends was Solomon AD, right? The
Mhm.
guy who introduced Sizin or Kizin to the occult community as we know it. So I talked to the dude, and he tells me, "Hey, you are like a person with certain afflictions, maybe you should work with Kizin. Kizin, he mentors over those people. And I start working with the guy, and I send Solomon my chance to Kizin or Kizin, and it works for him. So I can continue using my channel Moses to work with him. And so I receive a vision from Kizin. The vision was that you know that Kizin or Kizin, he manifests usually as a guy who is like infested by plague, and he is like rotting. So I have a vision of him, which is him rotting, but from his wounds comes the black juice. And that black juice, that black liquid, is dropping into the some form of a cup. And then I am drinking from that cup, and I am looking into the scrying mirror, and I am seeing the vision of Xibalba, right? The Mayan hill. So technically, 2 years later, I kind of just invoke Santa Muerte, and I take really strong tobacco and I chew it. And from really strong tobacco, when I chew it, comes the liquid of the same color I see from the wounds of Kizin, right? So from that I figure out that you kind of need to call Kizin, consecrate the tobacco, then you take the tobacco, then you chew it until you experience the tobacco poisoning, and then in a state of poisoning, you look in a scrying mirror, and you will see Xibalba. So that's kind of what I got. But I only chew it until poisoning. I never looked into the scrying mirror to see Xibalba. Maybe I will in the future, who knows? But actually, there is one more thing my short experiments with Indian pantheon taught me, and that's that like Tezcatlipoca, like the Aztec god of chaos, is really good if you want to consecrate tobacco. I don't know why the fuck that's the case, but when I was to consecrate tobacco, he was the one to come through. Uh, and like, what's ridiculous is I like have a lot of tobacco uh, pieces in my house, like a lot of tobacco box back in the day in my previous house, because a lot of people smoked. But I actually use tobacco only for ritual purposes to induce alternate states. And what happens is like I consecrate those cigarettes, and I only use one of them because I don't smoke. So one strong cigarette is enough for me to poison myself slightly. And I let that box of cigarettes there. And my neighbor comes, and out of all box of cigarettes in an entire house, she likes grabs my consecrated one and starts smoking like crazy. so so that's like an interesting story I have to say regarding this. But yeah, what's your like experience with Midland, with the Lord of Midland? If you ever worked.
I actually have not really worked a lot with Miklan. Just he's kind of been around sometimes whenever I'm working with Santa Muerte. But one of the things that I got a meditation from Santa Muerte, and I went into an Aztec temple in Miklan, which was very interesting. And then from there, I could see several different things. Like there was this green liquid, inside of this, like a hot tub kind of a thing. And then she told me to get into it. And when I got into it, I was changed certain ways. And then when I got out, Miklan Tukutli was there, kind of overseeing everything. But I haven't really had a lot of experience with him directly. Mainly, I would work with Santa Muerte or Mictlantecuhtli.
Yeah, but do you know? Can you share any rites dedicated to Santa Muerte with the audience? Because
with the what? Any rites?
Yeah, with the audience, like anything you can share, meditation, ritual, anything.
It'll be a first. You can't get anyone to share any rights.
So I'm trying to think of maybe some like I said, I have actually I have a meditation to get into the state that I was talking about on my YouTube channel. I'm not trying to push my YouTube channel,
Yeah.
but as far as rights go, let me see. It's been a while since I started working with her, man. And, you know, when I work with her now, I just sit down and start talking to her. So I'm trying to think about like how it was when I first started, so everybody can do something. So okay, first you want to do is cleanse yourself in a traditional kind of way. Get some Florida water, rinse yourself off, clean off your aura, all that shit. I don't know if you guys know how to use Florida water. I'm sure you do. And then maybe get some siete machos. She really works with all that kind of stuff. There's tobacco is a big thing. Give her some offerings, some mezcal tequila, some roses. Her day would be Saturday at midnight to give her offerings, and give at least offerings for her once a week on a Saturday at midnight. Give her the 13 roses, and then that's like the rites is kind of difficult. Like you just go in and start building a relationship with her. You know, there isn't a rite, in my opinion. Maybe somebody has one that I haven't read, but there isn't really a rite that you would just go and just like do some rite and all of a sudden you're connected with her. You know,
Gradual process. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like building astral senses, building relationship with spirits, understanding those physical mechanisms. It's not a simple thing.
I know you get it, but the thing is, I wasn't prepared. Like, if you would have told me maybe beforehand, if I had a right that maybe I could have looked something up, but I haven't done rights in such a long time with her because now I just talk to her. You know, like our relationship is so well, I'll just like start speaking with her, and then that's what it is. You know, I can barely.
Good.
It took me years to harbor that relationship. You know, I guess maybe the main rite that happened is when I nearly died, there was a great connection happen with Santa Muerte. So, I mean, I'm not trying to encourage anybody to start using a lot of drugs and almost die. But if you really want to connect with the death energy, that's a good way to do it. You know?
Every serious practitioner I ever interviewed ever had a near-death experience. Me, Joseph, and every good guest on this channel, man. Caligula, like, you can recognize shitty interviews on this channel by guest never mentioning near-death experience. So you can indicate of shitty interviews on this. Yeah. I like you, man. You're really good to talk to. Maybe we'll call you next time. But for the last question, because you really called a lot and talked a lot for people to read between the lines, and that makes a good interview. What do you think is the relationship between Santa Muerte and, for example, Christianity? How she fits into the framework, or at all?
Oh wow, man. So that is a very, very good question. I think she has become adaptable because of the people that work with her. There are certain people that need certain things. You know, some people need the watered down version of something in order to be able to reach the more intense version of something. And so some people need that. And I think that since she's the motherly figure that we were talking about, that she's going to harbor that relationship in any way that she can, you know, for those people and others. As far as Christianity goes, I don't know a lot about Catholicism, even though I am Hispanic and it's everywhere in my culture.
Madre Dios.
Madre de Dios. I mean, I think a lot of what she is, Christianity has been put into her, as opposed to her putting anything into Christianity. You know.
So it's interesting that you mentioned 13 roses. When I was very young, when I can't even say I. So like most people, I started out with the Satanic Bible when I was 13 years old. There was a rite in there where you're supposed to light a candle and then picture a lightning bolt striking your hands and your feet and bursting the shackles off of your hands and your feet. After I did that, I started immediately hearing was, the whispers. So I was inspired the whispers told me get 13 roses, hang them inverted over the threshold of your bedroom door. And I did that. They started to dry out and decay. I believe it was on the 6th or 7th night. I was living with my parents, of course. I was 13 years old. And my father said he's seen 3 robed figures float past his bedroom into my bedroom. After that, I was inspired to get a pillar candle with a Christ on it and get 2 nails, tie them together in the form of a cross, and put them on the pillar candle and heat the cross up until it's burning hot. And I did that, and the whispers told me to take the burning cross and kind of brand yourself where my taint was, and that was an initiation. I did that, and I went to sleep. It was incredibly painful. I pretty much cried myself to sleep, and a Lilin entity came in, a robed figure, no feet, came in, started hovering over my waist, and I remember it had gaping black eyes and a really big gaping mouth, like over my waist, and it took my seed. There was no physical matter left on my stomach. It took my seed. It was the first orgasm I ever had, and left. So these things are real. There's nothing subjective about any of this shit. It's quite objective when you are playing with these forces. So it was just, I just wanted to share that because the connection with the 13 roses.
So now it's interesting that you mentioned all interacting with different entities. Like me growing up, so I'll share a couple of stories when I was a kid. I grew up next to a graveyard, so I would always have somebody knocking on my door for many years. I don't know, like I just thought, I don't know who it was, whatever. And then one day I just got tired of it. I started yelling, "Who the fuck is it? This and this and that." And at that time, my mother was living with us. I grew up with my grandmother. She opens the door. She's like, "What are you yelling at?" I said, "Why are you knocking on my door?" This is when I realized it wasn't, it was a, disembodied. It wasn't, it was a ghost or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that was one of the experiences that I had. And actually, once I got back into the current, I started hearing the knocking on my door again. Not recently, but like it's kind of like it wanted me to open the door. So the connection, it's funny how we had those connections back from childhood from many years ago to kind of reinforce our practices now. I think a lot of us have had those. It's very interesting that we have those. And another thing is, when you mentioned the bed, that reminded me one time my grandmother went up and she went to the bathroom. She turned the light on, and I was facing the wall. I was a little kid. We used to sleep in the same room, in the same bed together. So I'm facing the wall, and then I hear her come back in, and she sits down on the bed, and it's like I feel her sit down on the bed, like when somebody sits next to you, your body moves and everything, right? And she was bigger than me. I was a little kid, and then I asked her why she didn't turn the light off, and then she didn't answer me. So I turned around, nobody was there, and it was she was still in the bathroom. So she hadn't turned the light off because she was still in the bathroom, so yeah. But it was, it's interesting. And then what you're talking about, the shadows, was very interesting because I've had meditations where I've seen, I call them the ancient ones. And there would be 4 of them like surrounding me when I was in meditation during rituals with Santa Muerte. And they were dressed in robes and they would just sit there watching me. But I would only see them through my third eye. When I set up my first altar here in my apartment to Santa Muerte, I saw her in like as a shadow, like a dark shadow, like behind me. I guess you can't see it, but I have curtains up. I blocked all the light out, so you can't see anything coming in. But before all that, I had blinds, and you could see the light would come in. And there's some street lights right behind my apartment window. So I saw her there, and it tripped me the fuck out. Like I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I didn't know who the fuck it was. She was as tall as the ceiling. She was just standing there like watching me, and then I felt this dread, this fear come over me, and I was like, "What the fuck, dude?" And then when I realized it was her, almost as if she was energetically told me without words that she was watching over me, and then I knew everything was all right. Then I just went ahead and just fell asleep. you know. But it's funny how those instances are similar.
Right.
Yeah.
So one last question: do you believe that there's any connection between Santa Muerte and Holy Kalmana, the wife of Cain?
That's a very interesting question. I've actually had that question quite a few times myself, because one, working with Kalmana, um, I've spoken to devotees that say yes, they're the same, but when I speak to them, I don't feel like they're the same.
Okay.
When I say the two different names, I feel they're different. So that's my personal experience.
Okay.
So
So
I
go ahead, Demetrius.
you know, you're like I agree with you, Disco. Calmana to me seems pretty Venusian, and Santa Muerte seems pretty Plutonian.
Mm.
So I think they are different entities, but they are more or less connected to the same thing. But did you work with any other Aztec spirit from Aztec pantheon?
Let me see if I've worked with any other. I've had visits from different Aztec spirits. I had one come to me in a dream. Um, I can't remember her name. She's like the mother goddess. Uh, I've I've spoken with Huitzilopochtli. Spoken with the smoking mirror. Huh?
Huitzilopochtli, can you talk about him, because I also had experience with him.
Huitzilopochtli was actually, at that point in time, I needed some some working out advice, and I was actually able to work with Huitzilopochtli to kind of like build my warrior kind of spirit. He actually was kind of, he's very, I thought he was going to be a lot more hardcore than he was. You know, to me, he seemed, he had that hardcore aspect to him. Like, you know, he could just devour you, but he was also pretty willing to help with certain things if you were serious. That was my experience.
So technically, I worked with Huitzilopochtli, and he was the only ever sun god I liked working with. There is something about him, because the sun gods from majority of pantheons, they tend to be judgmental, if you
Mhm.
know what I mean. They tend to like judge us as a followers of the left hand path. But Huitzilopochtli is like left hand oriented sun god, like the most metal god is like, I like the guy. So technically, what he told me is I had a severe health issue, and during one of my exercise sessions outside, I wasn't even like calling him or anything. He just, I like a vision exactly. Sun turned into a motherfucker. You know what I mean? So a sun turned into his representation, and then he told me that if I want to improve my health, I need to spend a lot of time in the sunlight. Like, just do nothing, simply be there, and he would like help me. And that's exactly what happened. But the problem is, when you are a lot in the sunlight, it weakens your ability to connect with the darker energies. Like,
Mhm.
people can say whatever they want to say. The sunlight and the essence of sunlight, it kind of weakens you in regard to your left hand attainment. So, like, can I propose a controversial idea here? Like, here's the thing. So we live in a modern age, right? And what I call as the manual human sacrifice, aka coming and sacrificing somebody physically, is not possible, it's not ethical, it's not legal. But what's ethical, possible, and legal is you severely cursing spirit entity or object and sacrificing it to the spirit. So I know majority of people who are afraid of working with the Aztec divinities. Uh, they don't work with them due to human sacrifice stigma, right? Because they don't want to go and manually kill a motherfucker. But you can work with them in this manner and make a world a better place. Through, for example, sacrificing negative entities or sacrificing your enemies via curse or sacrifice. You get what I'm saying?
I do get
So,
what you're saying.
so I think we should approach Slavic gods and Mayan gods and Aztec gods in this manner. So yeah.
So there is another left-handed wrathful sun god that would be Shamash Utu, and there is a way to gather dark solar light. You want to earth yourself when the last hour that the sun is present. That the ultraviolet rays are not present at that time at the last hour. So the last hour is Shamash, that's his time. So you want to get in your bare feet, you want to go into the grass, and you just want to simply close your eyes and sun gaze at the sun the last hour that it's in the sky. And that will not diminish your work with the dark spirits. Shamash is actually an adversarial solar deity. So I just wanted to point that out. Dysco, can you tell the people how they can get in touch with you, your YouTube channel, your handle on Facebook, or whatever else?
My YouTube channel is Disco Demonic Hydroponic. It was supposed to be This is a funny story, so I'll go ahead and tell you this real quick. But it was supposed to be hydrophonic. Like back in the 70s, they had the hi-fi stereos, and because it was disco, the hi-fi. But for some reason, I guess it auto-corrected into hydroponic, and I just kept it because I didn't even realize that for like a long time.
Yeah,
And
it was
so,
an accident. It was a good accident.
I was like, oh, I'm a water sign, so fuck it, you know. So I just kept it. That I actually have a website as well. It's called the Tao of Darkness and Light. And my Facebook, it's also Tao of Darkness and Light. I don't really use my Facebook business page a lot. But if you'd be okay with it, I will actually send you a couple of links to my, I think you have my YouTube channel, or I can send you a link to that and my website as well for if anybody wants to contact me for any kind of energy work and attunements or whatever. Basically, empowerments, all kind of, stuff like that. That's what I specialize in. So.
Fantastic. So the people can reach you on your, just say it one more time, your YouTube, and you said they would have trouble getting you on Facebook, right?
On my Facebook business page, they can contact me there, but I have a website, or if they just want to try on the Facebook business page, that's cool too. It's also called the Tao of Darkness and Light.
Cool.
And
sometimes you got to repeat it. Sometimes you got to repeat it for the people.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Tao of Darkness and Light. It's DAO of regular spelling, the regular spelling, darkness and light. But yeah.
Awesome. Then thank you very much for coming on, Dysco. It's been a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, Dysco is the real deal. Fuck yeah. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun, man. Thanks, guys. Thanks for seeing me, because this is actually usually sleep right now. Because I stay up at night, and this is my sleeping time, and then I get up at night right around, when the sun is setting, and I'm up all night, to keep my nocturnal hours. But
absolutely,
I was really pushing myself. So when I hit up Demetrius, I was like, hey, man, can we do this a little earlier? I'm about to go to bed, bro. So.
Understood.
Yeah. Right, but it's a time zone difference. So yeah, that's the reason.
I understand. Yeah. So I appreciate you guys doing that for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Dysco, for coming. See you, brother, next time. So yeah.
Okay. Take it easy, guys.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.